This is Gareth Southgate, and this is the Three Lions podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions podcast. My name is Russell Osborne and this is an independent England football supporters podcast that aims to look at all things England. Be it the men's senior team, the youth side, speaking with players who have represented the Three Lions over the years, hearing from fans and some of the journeys they too have been on over the years. And also the Lionesses. And this episode, that is where our focus lies. Because this year, July 2022, the Women's European Championships will take place here in England. It was originally due to take place in 2021, but shifted a year due to the global coronavirus pandemic. And if you cast your mind back, you may remember that the current holders are the Netherlands after they won it on home soil back in 2017. But we'll get onto that shortly. This will be the 13th European tournament of its kind after starting back in 1984. Since 1997, it has been played every 4 years in the same way the men's competition is, obviously with the exception of this tournament and the COVID issue. England have qualified for the tournament on 8 occasions and been runners-up twice. First in its debut year, then in 2009, when it was hosted by Finland and where Germany beat us in the final. Speaking of Germany, they have been the dominant team in the competition over the years, with 8 titles and 1 runners-up to their name. So the aim of this episode is to give you a little history lesson of England's women at the Euros, with the help of a couple of the players who took part.
1984.
Let's start in the competition's formative year, 1984. This and the following 5 tournaments only included 4 teams. 84 featured England, Denmark, Sweden and Italy. England at the time were managed by Martin Regan. The competition, basically, following a qualification period, went straight to a 2-legged semi-final, then a final, which again was 2-legged. Now, rather than me tell you about it, let's speak with someone who was there. I'd like to welcome back to the Three Lions podcast, Gill Coultard, former England women's captain, and I should say, Gill Coultard, MBE. Hello there. You all right?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. And you?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. And thanks for joining us again. I know we spoke a little while back about the World Cups, I think it was.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it's nice to be back on and obviously looking forward to the chat.
Yeah, well, this time we're talking European Championships, and I think it's important, this one, because we're going to push your mind back a little bit, back to 1984, which was, although technically I don't think a UEFA competition back then, it was one of the first European Championships and a very important one for England. But just to set the context of it all, it was like if you imagine the Nations League is now, it was 4 teams who played in the finals that had qualified to get there. This was after a 16-team qualification period of 4 groups of 4. England qualified top of Group 2, which was almost a home nations group, which comprised of Scotland, the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. We played 6, we won 6, scored 24 and only conceded 1. And that would take us through to this European Championships finals of 1984. Were you part of the qualification period there?
Yeah, I went all the way through. To be honest, that was my first really tournament football I played in. I think I was 18 at the time. So, yeah, I was a bit of a young whippersnapper then. But, yeah, it was, it was unbelievable, really, because I think in my era of football, for women to play football, it was a big thing. But to compete in a European finals is something different. And by the way, we played with a size 4 football, so that was unique in itself.
And as well, weren't the matches only 35 minutes each way?
Yeah, 35 minutes each way. So we've actually come a long way to get equal opportunities, haven't we? Of size 5 footballs and obviously 90 minutes. So yeah, I'm really pleased in a way because as much as it's been the forgotten one, it has been officially now said that it was a European Championship. So, that's why we're looking at 1984. For us to remember the first time that England had got to a European final, whether or not some people said it wasn't recognised as a UEFA tournament or not, you can't take that history away. It's in black and white. So we can clear that issue up. But what an experience.
Yeah, too right. Well, the 4 teams that qualified for the finals were ourselves, England, Italy, Denmark and Sweden. And the first semi-finals paired us up against Denmark. And these were over 2 legs. Played them at Gresty Road in Crewe back on the 8th of April. Give us your memories on that one.
Yeah, we played at Gresty Road. Obviously, it was nice to play up in the north. I think, did we win 2-1 or 3-1? 2-1. So it's a great result to take over there, especially winning on home soil. But we're under no illusions of obviously going over to Denmark and getting a result because, at that time, women's football in Scandinavia was really strong. So we were under no illusions. We were just, fortunate that we got the win, held to get the win. And then, obviously, we went over there for the return leg and we won 1-0. So that put us in the final. And I don't think we ever thought of, what the feat that we'd made to get into European final. They can't take that away from likes of me and obviously the players like Carol Thomas, the ex-England captain. It's there, it's written in the history book. So for that to happen is brilliant at my time of my career because I was just starting my career. So
did you know when you'd beaten Denmark in Denmark, well, what was the feeling of getting to the final?
I don't know really because in those days, the England trips that we went on, to go over to Denmark, we travelled on a Friday, played the game on Saturday, came back on Sunday and was at work on the Monday. So it was like a bish, bash, bosh type thing, all crammed into a little weekend. So, yeah, when we'd qualified and everything, we were ecstatic. And I think then the hard work started for what was then the WFA and Linda Whitehead and co. to obviously seek the venue for a final, to get us some kind of sponsorship, to be longer together before we played the final. So in a way, it was good for us, but in a way for the likes of those people that looked after us, it was a complete nightmare because we were trying to pinch money, rob Peter to pay Paul to get us accommodation and things like that. So it's a bit weird compared to what it is now.
Yeah. So the other game, Sweden beat Italy to join you in the final. And once again, these were played over 2 legs. Now, the first leg was played in 12th of May over in Sweden in the Ullevi Stadium in Gothenburg.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that because I've had something pop up on my iPad this morning, and it's actually a clip from that game.
Oh,
and I watched it a little bit, and it was from YouTube or UEFA. I sat and watched it for a little bit, and I just thought, wow, to play in a final for Doncaster Bells in an FA Cup is a mean feat, but to play and represent your country in a UEFA final is another, really, to be honest. And yeah, we were fortunate over there. I think they hit the post twice. But we're a resolute team. We're all together as players and things. And I think because of the background of the WFA that was in my time, I think it made us closer together and stronger.
Right.
So we knew that if we'd go back to England and we'd gone and got a goal, we knew that we could, hopefully get it back to maybe a draw or maybe go on and win it. And then obviously that's what we had to do.
That's right, because over in Sweden, it was Pierre Sundhage scored the only goal at the game. So Sweden won that one 1-0. So although you say you came away knowing what you had to do in the next game, you're obviously unfazed by it, were you?
I suppose for me as a person, yes, I was, because I was the youngest in the squad. So, being 18, you don't really fear anything. I don't think it's like any footballer. If they're young enough, they're good enough. So, they don't have no fear at that age. So for me, it was just like just playing another match. Whether it was the same for the older end, like your Liz Deegans, your Carol Thomas, your Lorraine Dobbs, and to name a few.
Yeah.
Whether it was different for them, I don't really know. But I was just going to play another football match. Well,
that second leg was played in Luton, played at Luton Town's Kenilworth Road, which was a stadium. It's a tiny little stadium for people that have not been there, not aware of it. It's slightly changed since the game back then, but it was a ground that at a time had an artificial pitch, a plastic pitch. But I got a feeling this one, your game, was certainly not played on a plastic pitch.
No, it was like a river.
It just looked a cold, wet, damp, horrible day.
Yeah, it was. I think we met up on the Friday evening. Don't forget, again, we played on the Sunday. So we only had really the evening and the Saturday to prepare for the game. And it never stopped raining. And it was probably in the balance of whether or not the game would be played. And then obviously there was a problem as well. Will we have to play it the next day? That caused problems then for people who had to go back to work, and would they get paid, and one thing and another. And anyway, eventually went ahead. And, well, it probably helped us because, we're used to playing on pitches like that in the grounds and the pitches that we played on. So it helped us a little bit. It obviously restricted the Swedes. And then we got the goal that gave us a 1-1, and obviously it went to penalties.
That's right. It was Linda Curl got the goal there to take it to 1-1. Now, under normal circumstances, the game had ended 1-1 on aggregate. Under normal circumstances, it would go to extra time, but there wasn't any back then.
No, it was straight penalties. Again, rules totally different to what it is now. And, in a way, I think all players on the field that day were glad that it never did, because the amount, obviously, I don't think you could find a blade of grass. It was that bad. It wasn't a great advert for us as a nation to have the final and play. Obviously, it wasn't their fault, obviously, the ground, but, the weather didn't help. So it wanted a great spectacle of trying to play football as a case of, can you get the ball forward as quick as you can, missing out the midfield and get it into final third. So yeah, and then obviously we went down to the penalty shootout. What
was your feelings with a penalty shootout?
Well, it's a lottery, you can't. If players step up and they want to take a penalty, let them take it. If players don't want to do it, then that's fine. But obviously we had to name 5 players. So, those 5 players, we said, if people missed, it wasn't, we've had a fantastic run. We've reached a final. So there was no hardship on those. And I think it takes a lot to step up to take a penalty, to be honest.
Right. Were you keen to? I know you didn't take a penalty, but did you consider yourself capable of taking one?
Yeah, because I think I was the 5th one. I'm not so sure, because I think we missed, didn't we? So it didn't get to the 5th person, I don't think. I can't remember.
I'm just looking. We lost 4-3. No, five England players took the penalties. There was Curl, Gallimore, Bampton, Hanson, Davis. Curl and Hanson missed theirs.
I think I was the 6th one that if it went that way. So But it's there was no untoward or anything. We enjoyed the night, what we could enjoy, and then we were back to work on the Monday, so you couldn't even reflect on what you'd done.
Oh, amazing times!
Yeah. Weird now when you look now of how much preparation there is going into an international tournament and how many days. I mean, when we went to the World Cup in '95, I think there was only 2 days between each game. When you look now, it's totally changed again. I think it's 4 days between each game.
Yeah.
With
a considerable more amount of teams as well.
Yeah, that's right. So, what we did was no mean feat, and under the circumstances of obviously sponsorship and, the WFA not having a lot of money, and likes of your Pat Gregory's and your Linda Whitehead, your June Jacobs, who were the main three in the group that, fought hand and tooth to provide or get us anything that she could get on, and even to get a kit, begging to go to sponsors, to get a kit for the final. It was great times. Even though I look back now and think, wow.
What are your thoughts looking ahead now? With obviously the European Championships once again being held in England. Serena Weigmann's now in charge of the Lionesses. How do you feel about the tournament this year for England's chances?
Well, I think, to be honest, I think this is the second time now we've held the tournament, and we learn from each time you host one. And the good thing is that the WSL is doing fantastic. It's obviously bringing quality players into the league. Our players are learning from the overseas players, which sometimes it does grate me to say that, I'd like to have a bit of a restriction on those players coming in, because I think it will at some point, all the young players that are coming in, they want to play football, and, it's maybe having a bit of a effect on our national team. And, at the end of the day, I think all the money now that we've got the St. George's Park facility, and you've got everything that the players need. They don't want for anything. There's no excuses now. We should be able to go on, and hopefully this year we go that step further and pick that silverware up, because, it's been a long time coming, like I say, from 1984 all the way now to this year. It's a long time coming, and there's lots of those players now in the squad that, this might be the last opportunity for them to get their hands on some silverware, whether, let's hope it's the winner's medal.
Let's hope so. It'd be a great way to round off the summer with a European Championships win on home soil. Gill, thank you very much for taking the time to chat to us and just reminiscing about 1984.
Cheers, Russell. Thank you.
My thanks go to Gill there. Penalties. When you think of England and penalties, you immediately think of the men at Italia 90, Euro 96, France 98. But the girls, well, they were there first. And despite the result not going our way, that first tournament, as Gill said, was highly important and mustn't be forgotten.
1987, Norway.
Once again, Martin Regan was in charge. Now, instead of being held across the best part of 4 weeks and 4 countries, like 1984 was, UEFA decided to hold the final tournament solely in Norway from the 11th till the 14th of June. This time, it was a straight semi-final, final, and 3rd and 4th place. To get there, again, there were 16 teams across 4 groups. England, again, topping the Great Britain and Ireland group, again, winning 6 out of 6. This time scoring 34 and conceding 2. This included a 10-0 victory over Northern Ireland. In the semi-final, England were drawn against Sweden, who, as we've just spoken with Gill Coultard about, had beaten them in the final 2 years previous. Sweden took the honours again and made their way to the final, winning 3-2 in extra time, which extra time had been added this year. Jackie Sherrard and Kerry Davis had scored, putting England 2-1 up at half-time, but it wasn't to be. It would be Italy in the third and fourth place 2 days later. Kerry Davis again scoring early in the 4th minute from the spot, only for Italy to score either side of half-time to record a 2-1 victory. The result meant that England would finish 4th. Sweden, though, they would go on to lose the final against the hosts, Norway.
1989, West Germany.
(1989), again with Martin Regan at the helm. This time, the qualification tournament was shaken up a bit in comparison to the previous two. There was no Great Britain and Ireland group. Instead, England were drawn with Denmark, Norway and Finland. They finished third, only winning twice, drawing once and losing 3 times. And I say it was shaken up as the top 2 teams in each group were then drawn together in a quarter-final, of which the 4 winners would go forwards to the finals. Those finalists would be West Germany, Italy, Sweden and Norway. This was where West Germany, or Germany's domination of the tournament, would begin, beating Norway in the final.
1991, Denmark.
(1991) would be Martin Regan's last Euros. This tournament was held in Denmark. Qualification this time had 5 groups, and again with the quarter-final system to provide the last 4 teams to compete in the finals. England were drawn in with Norway, who included in one of their meetings a certain Hege Riise, who would go on to manage England in a caretaker capacity. Also in the group were Finland and Belgium. The girls, well, they would come second in the group with 7 points, and they made their way to the quarter-finals, where they were drawn against a now unified Germany. The first leg, played at Wycombe Wanderers Adams Park, saw them lose 4-1. Karen Walker getting England's only goal. The second leg, well, that was played in Bochum with 3,000 fans in attendance. Germany won 2-0 and England were out. Germany, along with Norway, Italy and Denmark, would progress to the finals, where Germany would beat Norway in the final for the second time.
1993, Italy.
Once again, qualification was changed, with now 23 nations looking to qualify. Groups were made up of 7 groups of 3 and 1 group of 2, with the winners of each group making up the quarter-finals. England, who were now managed by Ted Copeland, topped Group 3 with 4 wins out of 4, beating Iceland and Scotland both home and away. They were drawn against Italy in the quarter-finals. Away first, they lost 3-2. Hopes of turning that deficit round were dashed as they went down 3-0 in the second leg at Rotherham's Millmoor, losing 6-2 on aggregate and not making the finals. As in 1991, Italy, Norway, Denmark and Germany all qualified. This time, Norway beat Italy in the final, taking the trophy for the second time.
1995.
"29 teams now contested the qualifying. The competition was getting bigger. Wales had also now entered. England, again under Ted Copeland, were in Group 7 alongside Spain, Belgium and Slovenia. They topped the group with 4 wins and 2 draws. This was a group where Slovenia were definitely the whipping girls. England beating them home and away 10-0 on both occasions. Spain would beat them 17-0. Overall, they conceded 60 goals, unsurprisingly finishing bottom of the group, and sadly not scoring once. England made their way to the quarter-finals, meeting Iceland, winning 2-1 in Reykjavik and 2-1 at Brighton's old Goldstone ground. They had finally made it to the Final Four for the first time since 1987, along with Germany, Norway and Sweden. They all went to the finals, which, like the original format, the semi-finals were played home and away. Whilst it was a 1995 finals tournament, England's first game was played in December of 1994, and despite taking the lead, they lost 4-1 at home to Germany at Watford's Vicarage Road. The second leg, played in February the following year, away in Bochum, again taking the lead, although they would lose 2-1. Karen Farley getting England's goals in both legs. Germany, well, they would meet Sweden in the final, beating them 3-2 to take their third title.
1997, Norway and Sweden.
1997. Again, another change. The finals would be an 8-team, 2-group format held between Norway and Sweden. Qualifying, well, that was also another complicated matter. The first placed of the group stage qualified directly, and the second placed and the third placed teams played in 2 playoff matches for the 4 other berths. England, in Group 3, finished in second place, a point behind Italy, with 4 wins, 1 draw and 1 defeat. And it meant that they went into the playoffs where they were drawn against Spain. They lost 2-1 in the first leg, then drew 1-1 at Prenton Park, meaning they wouldn't make the finals. And it was a finals that Germany, once again, would eventually win.
2001, Germany.
The competition had taken a break for 4 years to now become the format we know in the calendar. Hosted by Germany again, but England were now led by Hope Powell, the first female to hold that position. Qualification was assured after finishing second in Group 2 behind Norway, with 3 wins, a draw and 2 defeats, which included an 8-0 loss to the Norwegians. Finishing second meant that the only route to the finals was via the playoffs. Late October in 2000, England played Ukraine in a 2-legged playoff. Kelly Smith and Karen Walker scored in a 2-1 away win before winning 2-0 almost a month later at Leyton Orient's Brisbane Road. Sue Smith and Rachel Yankee with the goals in a 4-1 aggregate win. England were back in the finals the following year. However, it was all a bit of a disaster, as they were drawn in Group 1 with Germany, Sweden and Russia. They finished bottom, losing to both Sweden and Germany and drawing with Russia, and only scoring once in the 3 games.
– 2005, England.
Four years on from the disaster in Germany, the tournament was now to be held in England for the first time, so no qualification was required. With Hope Powell still in charge, England were drawn in an all-Nordic group, alongside Sweden, Finland and Denmark. Norway, well, they would be in Group B, alongside Germany, Italy and France. The tournament was very much Northern England based, with 5 stadiums being used. Bloomfield Road, Blackpool, the City of Manchester Stadium, Deepdale in Preston, the Halliwell Stadium in Warrington, and the final being played at Blackburn Rovers Ewood Park. England won their first game in front of 29,000 fans against Finland, winning 3-2. Karen Carney scoring an injury time winner. However, it didn't get any better than that, as they would go on to lose to Denmark and Sweden and finish bottom of the group. Once again, Germany would go on to win the final, again beating Norway. And here to tell us some more about that time is goalkeeper from the England squad, Joe Fletcher. So we're on to 2005. We welcomed the European Championships to England. So there's no qualification required this time around. I'd like to welcome to the Three Lions podcast, goalkeeper from that squad, Joe Fletcher.
Hi, Russell. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Welcome along to the Three Lions podcast. It was just looking to get a sort of a feel for what it was like back then when the Euros came to England for the England women's side. What do you remember back then?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, we had a fab run up to the tournament. We were in amazing form, really. So it's quite exciting for us that it was coming to England and to the Northwest as well, because I was obviously from the Northwest. So they were all sort of local grounds to me and a few of the other players. So yeah, it was super exciting. And obviously we hadn't qualified for sort of some previous ones. And so because it was in our country, we didn't have to qualify. So it was quite nice and exciting to take part in it.
Do you remember what the sort of the feeling was like 4 years previous? Because it wasn't a happy time really back then, because the tournament had been played in Germany and England hadn't done particularly well, had they?
No, and it was kind of, so I went to America on a soccer scholarship. I kind of followed Rachel Brown out there. So though I'd been in like the under-18 squad and sort of the fringes of the senior squads, I was away sort of that whole period. So I kind of missed sort of that element of it. But I know when I kind of came back into the squad after I'd come back, there was that little bit of pressure to perform well, because we had done so badly in previous tournaments. And like I said, and we'd done so well in sort of the run-up to it as well.
Yeah, the run-up, you were quite consistent in playing there. We played Italy, where you made your debut at the National Hockey Stadium in Milton Keynes, of all places.
I know. Do you know what? I didn't know I was going to start that game at the time. And you obviously go to the training camps and, you know, you have 3, 4, 5 days before the sort of game. Which I think was it on the Saturday, or was it? No, it was a midweek, wasn't it? It was a night game,
right?
And so you kind of get a sort of feel, and you know, getting towards the game, you'd play starters against non-starters, and I was kind of thinking, oh, this is a bit weird. Like, why am I with the starters? And you know, and then eventually, it kind of every time you sort of getting picked with the starters, I was thinking, oh, I think I might be playing this one.
Wow.
So it was really odd, and then we obviously won 4-1 in that game, and I think. Emily Westwood made her debut. I think Karen Carney might have done as well.
Yes.
So there was a little cluster of us, and then kind of never lost my place in the team. And I seemed to be playing better for England than I was for my club. So I was kind of like thriving in that sort of environment. So yeah, it was amazing. I remember the debut quite well.
Your club side was Birmingham City ladies at the time, and many of the players from that were playing alongside you. There was Alex Scott, Rachel Yankee, as you've mentioned, Karen Carney, Enia Luco as well.
Yeah, it was funny because it was around that kind of time where it almost seemed to rotate around which clubs had a bit of money. And
Right.
And obviously that season Birmingham had a decent bit of money and sort of like almost cherry picked the players that they wanted. So yeah, we had a fantastic team at Birmingham as well.
On the England front, the Algarve Cup was next, where England had some good results, beating Portugal and Mexico, and by all accounts we lost to China on penalties. I think it was.
Yeah. And do you know, China were really up there. I think they were like second or third in the world at that time. So a 0-0 draw against them was a really good result for us. And yeah, I remember the penalties because I think I didn't save any of the 5.
You got close to them, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Scotland and Norway were up next before the Euros, and you got player of the match by all accounts against Norway.
Yeah, I remember that quite well. In fact, I'm looking at my my player of the match champagne is on my shelf. It's been drunk, but
I was going to say, do they get drunk, these magnums?
Yeah, do you know what? I'd saved it. I didn't drink it on the evening of the game, and do you know what the funny thing was as well? I was desperate to swap goalkeeper shirts with the number 1 from Norway, and her name escapes me at the moment because she was a bit of a legend at the time. And because I'd got player of the match, I was like whisked off to do all the interviews and stuff. So I never managed to do it.
Oh, that's a shame.
But no, weirdly, I went to the military academy at Sandhurst not long after the Euros actually, and we opened the bottle of champagne one night after we'd come back from exercise with my platoon. So that was quite nice.
Oh, wow. Great stuff. You were in the squad, and you'd obviously played your 6 games prior to that. So you must have felt, right, I've got a real good chance of starting, because Rachel Brown was your opposition, wasn't she? She was,
yeah. Yeah, I was pretty confident that I was going to... I mean, I didn't really feel like there was any way they could leave me out because I played so well. And obviously we hadn't lost any games in that run-up. So, yeah, going into it, I was pretty happy that I was going to play. And I think I was given the number 1 squad number as well. So yeah, I would have been surprised. I probably would have been a bit upset if I hadn't played.
So the first game of the Euros was Finland. And it was played up at the city, or what was then known as the City of Manchester Stadium. And England got off to a great start, winning 3-2 in front of it was a real bumper crowd, 29,000 there. Yeah,
it was really good, for our first game to have that size of crowd. And I think we entertained the fans maybe a little bit too much for our own liking, because we probably should have beaten Finland by a little bit more, but. I didn't have the best game, and I think Karen Carney kind of saved the day for us with a bit of a last-minute winner.
Hope Powell was in charge back then. What do you remember of her sort of pre-match and pre-tournament?
Not like massive amounts. Before I went to the US, Ted Copeland was in charge, so I kind of, sort of initially been in the squads under him, and then obviously when I came back, Hope was there. I mean, she's quite relaxed. There's no kind of like Alex Ferguson sort of treatment or anything like that. She's quite what's the word? She kind of thinks about what she's going to say before she says it. So she's sort of quite gathered and, kind of quite tactical, I guess I would say.
I see. So Denmark were also in our group. In fact, it was quite a Scandinavian feel to the group: Finland, Denmark and Sweden and ourselves. But Denmark were next, and you moved on to Blackburn and Ewood Park. What do you remember about that one?
Yeah, it was a really disappointing game. I mean, we obviously would have been expecting to pick up another 3 points in that game, especially with Sweden being the final game in our group, because they were definitely the sort of tougher opponents, and they were a real powerhouse in the world at that time as well. I mean, I think they were like, in the top 3 or 4 ranked teams worldwide. So yeah, we would have been expecting to pick up the points. And I remember their first goal was a free kick from the edge of the area, and I've seen a few photos of it afterwards. But yeah, it was pretty unstoppable. I think it clipped the underside of the crossbar right in the corner and went in. And then they had quite a late winner as well, which I remember really well. It was a cross and a header, and again pretty unstoppable. So I think I played much better in that one than the Finland one. But yeah, it was really disappointing. And then we were really up against it going into needing to pick up points against Sweden in the final group game. Yeah.
That Denmark game turned out to be your last cap for England, I believe, because the next game against Sweden, you were replaced by Rachel Brown. Do you know what the thinking was behind that?
So I've seen an excerpt from Hope's book that said about me being injured,
right?
But in reality, that decision was made after the Finland game. Right. So I remember Hope kind of like pulling us aside, and yeah, like I said, I didn't have the best game. Like, it wasn't a disaster, but it wasn't on par with, you know, my previous sort of run in to the tournament. And Hope had said after that game, right, you'll play Denmark and Rachel will play Sweden. So I was a little bit miffed, because I was thinking, well, what happens if I, you know, play against Denmark and, like, you know, pull off the best game ever? That still means I'm not going to play in the final game. So so I was really, really disappointed, you know, having that run in unbeaten, playing amazingly well for my country, and then, you know, to be told I wasn't going to play the final game. And like you said, that was sorry to interrupt, Russ.
That's right. No, go on, you carry on.
No, I was just going to say, and obviously you're right, that was my last game. I went to Sandhurst not so long kind of after that, and I think started in the September at Sandhurst, and then kind of had a different career, and, you know, combining that with football at that time was really, really difficult. That kind of, it wasn't my intention to end my England career then, but it just sort of ended up being the way it sort of panned out.
I see. So the Sweden game, England lost and were out of the tournament. Was there sort of a healthy relationship for the place with you and Rachel Brown?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was with all the goalkeepers, and I think that's always the case. We always have a bit of a goalkeepers union. So certainly no bad feeling towards Rachel at all. And it was one of those things. Obviously,
going out then to Sweden, what was the feeling within the camp then? Was it must have been of disappointment, thinking you should have done better?
Yeah, like I said, really disappointed, and, you know, we should have picked up our points against Denmark and, you know, really been kind of safe by the time we got to the Sweden game. So I think almost like a little bit of disbelief, really, you know, that we hadn't qualified, and there was that expectation on us that really, you know, kind of minimum result would have been the quarterfinals, if not further than that, really. So yeah, it was. And we had, I think I'm right in saying that we had Sweden and Germany in the same hotel as us.
Oh, right.
That, I don't know if that would happen now. It probably wouldn't. But it's weird, the things that kind of stand out, because you'd think it'd be the football bits that you'd remember more. But I remember two things. One of them was that the Swedes were always out sunbathing. And because it was the summer, I mean, not the hottest up in the northwest, but the Swedes would be out sunbathing, and we were always told we weren't allowed in the sun and we had to stay in the shade to make sure we were rehydrated and stuff.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I remember is I think this was around the time when England just started having their own chefs and stuff,
right?
Rather than just sort of eating the general hotel food. But I remember the Germans having steak and chips one night, and us all kind of looking at them, and, you know, we had our like dry chicken and and stuff, being a bit jealous of the Germans and the Swedes out sunbathing. So it's a weird couple of things I remembered from the tournament.
Well, fast forward to where we are now, 2022, you'll understand what the England team, or the Lionesses as they're more commonly known as now, will be going through. What do you think for the Euros coming up?
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic to have it in England again. It gives all the fans that opportunity to come out and see how much I think that England have progressed over the last 15, 17 years, or however many years it's been since 2005. My maths isn't that good off the top of my head. And you know, the players have come on dramatically. We were still sort of part-time back then, and obviously they're all full-time pros now, and the fitness levels have increased hugely and the skill levels have increased, and I think they'll go out there and enjoy it. You know, they've had a good run behind them. They've had, you know, less pressure, I think, now, because they have had some decent results in tournaments, you know, sort of coming up to this point. So they can go out there and enjoy it, and they know they're capable of winning games and probably winning it overall.
Is that what you think? We can win this?
Do you know what? I think in tournaments you've always got that chance, and I think the gap between the top teams and the teams a little bit further down isn't as much as it used to be. Like going back to 2005, like if you beat the US, that would have been like, you know, something historic.
Yeah.
But now you expect to go into the game against the US and like stand your own, and, you know, have just as much chance of winning those games as they do. So, yeah, European-wise, I think England will think they can beat anyone on their day.
Well, let's hope so. Thank you very much for joining us and taking time to speak to us and sharing some of your memories.
No problem at all. Thanks for inviting me.
2009, Finland.
After 2 disappointments in a row, falling at the group stage, England had to make progress this time. Finland was the destination of the finals, but England had to get there first. Pitched in alongside Spain, Czech Republic, Belarus and Northern Ireland in Group 1, England won 6 and drew 2, finishing top. Now the finals had 12 teams and they were split between 3 groups. The top 2 from each group automatically making the quarterfinals, and then the best 2 third-place teams. Group C featured Sweden, Italy, England and Russia. England really had a poor group stage, but it's all about getting through. They lost initially to Italy 2-1, then beat Russia 3-2, then drew 1-1 with Sweden. They finished in 3rd place. They had to hope they would be one of the best 3rd place sides. With 4 points registered, goals scored 5, goals conceded 5, they were the best 3rd place team. Norway went through also with 4 points. Denmark would miss out. The knockout stage, the quarterfinals, England were drawn against hosts Finland, who had won their group in front of some bumper crowds. This time, with 7,000 in attendance, England silenced them early with an Eni Aluko goal. Farrell Williams made it 2-0. Finland replied, only for Aluko to get another. England progressed with a 3-2 victory to make the semi-finals. The Netherlands would be their opponents, who had finished behind Finland in their group. Just past the hour mark, Kelly Smith scored, only for the Dutch to peg them back immediately. The game would go to extra time, where Gill scored to put England into the final for the first time since 1984. Serial winners Germany would be waiting, and they were too hard a side to beat. They'd scored 15 and only conceded 3 on their route to the final, and they won their 7th title with a convincing 6-2 victory. Karen Carney and Kelly Smith both scoring for England.
2013, Sweden.
Sweden were hosts for the 11th edition of the tournament. By now, the game was growing in England, and the fact the Lionesses, as they were now being referred to, had made it to the previous final, there would be something wrong if they didn't get through the qualification process. 38 teams were spread across 7 groups, all looking for one of the 12 final spots. England were in Group 6 with the Netherlands, Serbia, Slovenia and Croatia. They topped it with 6 wins and 2 draws, just ahead of the Netherlands, who finished second with 6 wins, a draw and a loss. They would go on to also qualify as best runner-up. With qualification in the bag, confidence high, that would be shattered as they got to Sweden, as once again they finished bottom of the group, losing to Spain and France and only drawing with Russia.
3 minutes of added time are up. The rest is at the referee's discretion. Adriana's crossed to the good one. The goalkeeper hasn't got there. It's bottled in. Is it going to count? Spain celebrate. And the goal is going to stand in Coultard. Incredible. This time surely it will be the winner. England have responded quickly twice before when conceding, but this time there is no time left. Win for England and they go through, defeats and they're out. Only if they draw does it begin to get more complicated with a number of possible permutations. Towards Renard, 3.
They came home early, and manager Hope Powell was sacked shortly afterwards.
2017, the Netherlands.
The last Women's European Championships was held well in advance of the pandemic. It saw the Netherlands host it. This ahead of interest from the likes of Scotland, Austria, France, Israel, Poland and Switzerland. 40 nations competed for the now larger, expanded 16-team tournament. England, now managed by Mark Sampson, topped Group 7 after 7 wins and 1 draw. This in a group that included Belgium, Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina and Estonia. They would register 32 goals with 1 against. In fact, they beat Serbia 7-0, both home and away. Much like the men's team, the women, they have no problem with their qualifying campaigns. The Netherlands was calling. Along with Spain, Scotland and Portugal, they were all drawn in England's group, Group D. And it would be the first time England had met Scotland in a Euros tournament, or indeed any international tournament. Although that would change as they met again at the 2019 World Cup. This first meeting would see England run out 6-0 winners, and in doing so made history, as no one had won by a margin of 6 in the women's competition before. Jodie Taylor scored a 43-minute hat-trick as she went on to claim the top goalscorer award in the competition. Amazingly, she hadn't played any part in qualifying. Ellen White, Jordan Nobbs and Tony Duggan would get the other 3 goals. There were victories over Spain and Portugal as England topped their tournament group for the first time.
And it's a wonderful finish. And it's England who take the lead. Just 90 seconds played and beautifully finished by Fran Kirby. And plenty of blue shirts forward in this attack. Lovely ball through. Jodie Taylor to seal it. And surely that is that. It is Jodie Taylor again. The full-time whistle goes. It's the first time England have won their opening 2 matches in a major tournament. They've beaten Spain 2-0. To Moraes, the Portuguese goalkeeper. Oh, it's a terrible mistake. It's given to Tony Duggan. And England have the lead. Just 6 minutes played. And on her 50th appearance for England, she scores her 17th goal. Ball over the top. Trying to bulldoze her way through, which she does. And England retake the lead. Just 2.5 minutes into the second half. And it's Nikita Paris who scored it. It's finished 2-1.
France were next in the quarter-finals. Another Jodie Taylor goal, the only one of the game, saw England make the semi-finals and a meeting with hosts, the Netherlands, who were managed by a certain Serena Weigman. They were too strong and ran out 3-0 victors and would go on to take the trophy for the first time, beating Denmark in the final 4-2. So England's history at the Euros is now up to date. It's been a bit of a mishmash over the years. Failed qualification, falling at the first group hurdle, eliminated at the semi-finals, or being losing finalists. Perhaps this time will be their year. Whilst it hasn't seemed to help in the past, perhaps home advantage will now play its part. Back on the 3rd of December 2018, England were announced as hosting the tournament, so qualification for it hasn't been necessary. But even with the COVID disruption, they have managed to play a fair amount of matches in the lead up to it. Mainly helped by the World Cup qualifying matches and the home-based Arnold Clark Cup. And winning that could turn out to be the perfect tonic. Many thanks for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, thank you to both Gill Coultard and Joe Fletcher for their memories. Don't forget the podcast can be found on all the usual social media channels, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and also YouTube. Why not tell your friends? Spread the word. Hopefully, I'll be able to put together an episode that celebrates a win for our Lionesses come Sunday, the 31st of July. Until then, take care. Cheers.